Although Prince Charles escaped with the help of Flora MacDonald, who disguised him as a maid, as a result of the Battle of Culloden and the mission by Cumberland then to destroy all the Highland Jacobites, the Highland people were all but wiped out.
In the end, it turned out where he'd chosen his battle site, unfortunately, was a bad choice of land to fight on. It was more suited to the English, who were basically the leadership of the Scottish clans involved, along with the Campbells and other such as the Munros. And they were outnumbered. There's like approximately 9,000 to about, I think it was approximately 4,000 or 5,000 troops of the Jacobites. And of course those Jacobites were also quite starved, lack of food, and very tired from so many battles, and they pretty much worn themselves out with poor leadership and a bad choice of place to fight. And of course in resulting in that, they end up having to flee with what followed to be known as the Highlander Clearances. The banning and wearing of the tartan, the banning of the playing of the bagpipes, and so basically the clan system as a whole had completely been destroyed forever. Even to this day, as a system of politics within that country, it was no more. To be seen as a Mac, whether it be a Macintosh or a Mac anything, was seen to be very unhealthy, because obviously it's a very obvious recognised Highland Scottish name, and often usually supporting the Jacobite side. So with the notorious Black Watch, which is also forefront from the Campbells, amongst others, and under the authority of the English throne, it was extremely brutal. They also had their own version of a famine involved of the time period, and many had to leave, and whether it migrated across to Northern Ireland as a jump point, they may well have stayed there, but there were also many, as I say, used as a jump point to go to Canada, America, and of course later Australia and New Zealand and elsewhere. With our direct ancestral line of Thomsons, we are now led to Belfast, Northern Ireland in the province of Ulster. It is from here that our line eventually migrated to Australia. Again, it is history that will help us understand what caused our ancestors to migrate, such as the Great Potato Famine in Ireland, otherwise known as the Famine of 47, which really began in 1845. It was the blighting and failure of the potato crop, the people's chief means of sustenance. It is calculated that about 1 million people died either of direct starvation or of the diseases introduced by the famines. Many fled to foreign lands from Ireland between 1846 and 1850. Our ancestors lived around this tragedy, but it is unknown as to what level of effect it had on them. In all, we have many connected names that stem from both Ireland and Scotland predominantly, such as Kennedy, MacDonald, Dwyer, Green, Robertson and many others. It is interesting to note, in the province of Ulster, the most common surname in County Down is the name Thompson, whereas in County Antrim it is one of the most common. By Irish records that I have found, the name Thomson was not registered as a common surname in Ireland in the 16th century. It is, however, a common surname in the 17th century. That is the case for many names that were formerly from Scotland and England alike. What caused this sudden increase in the numbers from Scotland and England was not only due to the battles such as Culloden. The reasons are varied, but it has usually been directly or indirectly a result of the English throne. In 1171, Henry II invaded Ireland. He received approval from the newly elected English Pope Nicholas Breakspear, Adrian IV, on the grounds that morals in Ireland had become corrupt and religion almost extinct, and his purpose was to bring the barbarous nation within the fold of the faith and under church discipline. Many battles have been fought over the centuries in Ireland, but it was not until Henry VIII's reign from 1509 to 1547 that the English interference took its toll on an already thriving Irish population. Overall, there were more Scots than English by the end of what is known as the Plantation period, an ongoing colonisation of Ireland. Much of what happened in Scotland, which resulted in the emigration to Ireland, was the result of the English king. He realised that the Pope held a higher position than that of the King of England. With that thought came the outlawing of the Catholic Church in the whole of the British Isles. Subsequent kings and queens such as Elizabeth I increased the efforts to install plantations across the island, claiming land for England and forcing the Irish to rent their own land back from their conquerors. The native Irish were driven to the bogs and the moors, where it was hoped they would starve to death. All action on the part of the Irish to resist the incursions was soundly defeated by the English forces. Though the native Irish had many successes with such great clans as Clan O'Neill, they were in the end defeated by the English in the 9-Year War. James I exiled some chiefs, one of which was the chief of Clan O'Neill. He confiscated their lands and gave it to the Scottish and English families he considered gentle and peaceful. Also, he chose people who had the wealth to install tenants and to improve the land. Another reason of the English for displacing some of the Scots and encouraging others to move on their own was the intention for the Scots to help in the pacification of the Irish. The English authorities of this time period seemed to like the idea of using the solution of one problem in providing the solution to a second problem. The greater majority of the Ulster Scots were tenant farmers and neither cattle thieves nor religious fanatics. Cattle were virtually the only wealth of the Scots. They left Scotland because the land could no longer support them due to the ravages of war, and they could not pay the high rents that were being charged. So now we do know at this stage is our furthest known ancestor was Samuel Thomson, who married Sarah Kennedy. They were farmers who, as we have heard down through the generations, had 16 children, one of which was Captain David Thomson. We can only speculate as to why Captain David came to Australia, but it is possible that the famine had some effect in his thinking. Captain David was born in Belfast around 1834-35 and would have been 12 years old at the worsening height of the famine in 1847. This may have had a lasting impression on a young boy, though County Antrim and County Down were less affected by the famine. We had been told through the family that he met his wife on the ship to Australia. We found on Captain David's marriage certificate to Mary MacDonald their parents' name, that they were both 27 years of age and married on the 11th of February in 1863 at St Mary's Cathedral in Sydney. Their religion was Roman Catholic and place of birth was County Down for Captain David and County Mayo for Mary MacDonald. Captain David's occupation was a mariner and Mary was a servant.